Good day. I see the room is filling up. Lovely to see this. Today it's both a privilege and an honor to stand before you in multiple capacities. In fact, first of all, as the president of Euromersive, a role that involves uniting professionals within our XR ecosystem of immersive and emerging technologies, advocating for their interests, and fostering connections to help our community grow and thrive. I'm equally delighted to moderate today's panel towards the European leadership in virtual worlds and Web 4.0. But last but not least, as a proud Belgium, we're presenting a nation known for its culinary delights, such as chocolate, fries, yes, they're Belgium. Sorry for the ones that think differently, but also for many other things like surrealism, like René Magritte, that many might know already, which also comes along in our daily lives in Belgium. But at the same time, a spirit encapsulated in our official Belgian slogan, unity makes strength. In Belgium, we stand united. Despite challenges, celebrating victories together. It's this unity in particular that we must maintain, regardless of the obstacles we face. Technology itself isn't good or bad. It's the people wielding it to determine its impact. Embracing our uniqueness, we recognize that one size doesn't fit all. To navigate the complexities of life, it's through collaboration, constructive work, respect and ethical considerations that we can build a better future for ourselves, but also for future generations to come. Our upcoming session will start with a keynote from Mrs. Anne Bajard. Following that, our esteemed panelists, Lisa Maria Wurtzinger, Didier Strijker, Nikos Achilleopoulos, and Mrs. Anne Bajard will delve into Europe's journey towards technological leadership in virtual worlds and Web 4.0. We'll explore the transition from research excellence to the technical deployment of innovative solutions, with insights into how Horizon Europe and Digital Europe support this transformative path. As we proceed, there will also be a Slido QR code, on the screen later on for you to put questions in it. More about that later, and we will address these as time allows after the panel. So without further ado, let's warmly welcome Mrs. Anne Bajard, the Deputy Head of Unit DG Connect, Interactive Technologies, Digital for Culture and Education of the European Commission. Thank you.
Okay, it's just a first. Okay, I don't have a place to sit, so I will take a corner not to... I don't know where to sit, basically. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be with you this afternoon. I'm just going to give you an overview of the strategy that the European Commission has set regarding virtual worlds and Web 4.0. I think that many of you have already heard about this presentation. So someone is telling me that I should move. I'm going to move. Is it better here? Yes? Okay. I'm in the center now. I'm going to go relatively fast because I really want to have the time to discuss and enjoy our panelists, but we really wanted to give you an idea of the work we have been doing in the last months. So last July, basically, the Commission published a communication about Web 4.0 and virtual worlds. I mean, this was the results of a long preparation work. I think some of you have helped us during workshops and meetings and discussions, and it came from the observation that virtual worlds and Web 4.0 are really developing fast, and we want Europe to really be at the center of it. So we introduced these concepts of virtual worlds and Web 4.0, and I would like here to explain a little bit why we are not talking about metaverse or metaverses. This is really because we have a vision which is a bit bigger than just a metaverse or metaverses. So the ultimate vision, which is the one of the Web 4.0, is really of a place where there will be no difference anymore between what is real and what is digital. we are very much aware that we are not there yet, and there's still a long way before we reach this point. But we really want Europe to take the lead on this domain by really thinking forward and not just about what can be done today, but what could happen in maybe the next decade or so, when we will really have everything blurred in one place, and how we can make sure that these things are developed for the best of Europe. So we did a lot of study. I really encourage you to have a look at our staff working document. This is a document which is attached to the communication, where you will find plenty of data, such as the one which are on the slides, when it comes about the development of the market, about the necessity to really have an increase of performance and accuracy in certain technologies. So that's really a big package that we need to deal with if we want it to happen. So the vision, which is really important, is about these Web 4.0 and virtual worlds reflecting EU values, principles, and fundamental rights. I mean, you will hear in the panel afterwards that we are going to talk a lot about human-centric, trustworthy systems. I mean, it sounds so obvious to say that, but it's in fact extremely important, especially in the world in which we live today, where we can sometimes see things develop elsewhere which are not exactly the way we want things to happen. So we really want this first bullet point is extremely important. This is really part of the vision itself. We want them to be a place where people can be safe, confident, empowered, when, of course, the rights as users, consumers, workers, or creators are respected. Once again, quite obvious to state, not so easy to implement. But we also want them to be a place where European businesses can develop world-leading applications. So it's about competitiveness. It's about really, scaling up and growing. We want this to be a place where, things are open and interoperable. This is a bit linked to everything else, but this is also not something so easy to make happen. And of course, we have to take care of the sustainability aspects, because none of these things will happen if we are not making sure that in, all the problems we have these days, sustainability is taken into account. So the strategy that we came with is organized around 4 pillars. One about people and skills, one about business and industrial ecosystem, one about government, and one about governance. I will go very, very quickly to what we have there, and maybe I will focus a little bit more about things of interest for this panel. So you can already see that, for example, we mentioned the Digital Europe program and the Horizon Europe program on these slides in different places. It's just to highlight the fact that indeed there are already quite many synergies, and it's sometimes not exclusively restricted to research projects. So, for example, we have an open call for the moment for the creation of European masters in virtual worlds. This is funded through the Digital Europe program. So that's really about creating experts and people who know how to develop and how to use ultimately virtual worlds and Web 4.0. We have also quite a lot of things done under the Creative Europe program, where we tackle maybe more the creativity and the artistic part of it, but this is also important. And we are just launching, I think, in 2-3 weeks, a study funded through Horizon Europe to really study the impact on people's health and well-being of the use of virtual worlds. So this is a study, this is not a research project, which means that this is really about making a stock-taking of everything that is out there. And because there are quite many studies already, but they are very scattered and on very specific domains, to identify the gaps and to be able to know, okay, this is where we need more research in the second stage. There are quite many things there, but I think many of you have already heard about it, so I will just focus on this. Then when it comes to the businesses part, I would like to really highlight here the new European partnership to be funded under Horizon Europe. So we are now in a position where this is basically more or less to be taken for granted that this is going to happen. We are still pending the formal approval of our member states, but we already have the informal approval of all of them. So this is going to materialize. And once again, this is under Horizon Europe, because this public-private partnership is going to be a place where the private side, meaning all the stakeholders in Europe, will meet with the public side, being the Commission, and we are going to work together to make it happen, to define the priorities, to see what can be done and how it can be done for the best of Europe. And to do that, we have already in place certain things, including the Virtual and Augmented Reality Industrial Coalition. Some of you are already members of it. You can have a look on the web if you want to know more about this. And that's really already a first place where we can discuss about road mapping, about common strategy, and about issues that we have in Europe. We are already funding also two important projects, one in Digital Europe program about the Cityverse, so that's really about a virtual world for smart and sustainable cities and communities, and one about the European Virtual Human Twin under Horizon Europe. So as the word says, it's really about having a kind of clone of you that can be used, for example, for health purposes or for many different applications. Really complicated, but already existing. And we are still working on all the rest, including standards, for example, creating also an expert group with member states that is for the moment under construction, and we will have the first meeting probably in March. If you want to know more about all of this, these are the links, this is the place, but honestly, you use any of your favorite search tool, and if you type Web 4.0 Virtual Tours EU Strategy, you will find all these documents. I mean, that's really the basis, and I would like to highlight here that now we are starting to implement step by step. Many things will come in the next 6 months out of this communication already, but the future is already also at our door. So we will have to keep on working together to make sure that we really develop all together in the same direction, and it includes of course, all the synergies between the different stakeholders and between the different programs and between the different things we say. Would it be on deployment? Would it be on research? Would it be maybe on more, ethical, social, legal, economic aspects and so on? That's really a big package that we need to cover all together. And I managed to do it in 10 minutes. I'm happy of myself.
Thank you so much. You can stay here.
I'm going to sit there, right?
As said before, we will continue with the panel, and I would like to call next, besides Anne Bajard, we will have Didier Streicher, professor in computer science at the University of Kaiserslautern and scientific director at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence from Germany. Welcome.
Hello.
Then we have Lisa Maria Würzinger, co-founder and CEO at Arrival Space, co-founder and immersive producer at Go Inside VR from Austria. Welcome.
Hi.
And Nikos Achilleopoulos, senior project manager from Majoli, the Bridges Horizon project from Greece. Welcome. Give them a small applause. So thank you for being here. I'll let you shortly introduce yourselves, and then we can start with the conversation coming up. Maybe Nikos, we can start with you. Yes.
Okay, hello. I'm Nikos Achilleopoulos. I'm representing, I work for the Italian group Majoli. We are a large industrial partner in Italy, a group. And one of our main activities is that we serve the Italian public. So many cities, many regions are our customers, and our interests in this type of work started actually when we were dealing with upskilling and reskilling people. And we started investing in these technologies like virtual worlds to see if skilling can be improved, or certain type of skills can be trained with this technology, which otherwise would be dangerous or, let's say, costly. So we started doing work on fire brigade training, and we now have successfully installed 2 installations in Berlin and in Athens, and the fire brigade can train there in extinguishing fires in airplanes. So you see that these kind of technologies should start, let's say, and I make the statement that education, for example, is one of the most important parts we should look at. And I think during the discussion we're going to see details about that. Thank you.
Totally. Lisa.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me. So my name is Lisa Maria Würzinger. I basically started in traditional film like 15 years ago, working as a producer for my previous company. We then switched to producing 360 and VR content back in 2016, so quite a couple of years ago. And when the pandemic hit, we all pivoted. So what are we going to do? And we started to produce social XR live events on different platforms and produced a couple of events. And by doing this, there were a lot of learnings that it's very hard for people to get into virtual worlds. It's not that easy to go and access them or find out about them. So basically, with all these learnings, we started a new company last year, Arrival.space. And with Arrival Space, we're basically a fully web-based and interoperable social 3D platform, and putting all our learnings in there, learning a lot from the community. And yeah.
Brilliant, welcome. Didier?
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. So I'm professor in computer science at the University in Kaiserslautern in Germany and leader of a group called Augmented Vision at the DFKI, German Institute for Artificial Intelligence. So we do research, that's our main purpose, and also transfer of technology from university basically to the market. So one goal is also to create startup, to work with the industry, and what we start with at the university to put it into prototypes and in the market. So my group is about 70 people. We work in image processing, computer vision, to understand the surrounding, capture things, interpret the scene. Then we have another line, which is sensor fusion and sensor interpretation to capture user, motion, gesture, interpret them. And the last one is virtual and augmented reality, the application itself. And here we look at the moment at two things. So we focus a lot on computer vision the last year, but we come back fully to virtual worlds. So we look at remote collaboration, interaction with avatars and remote collaboration, because I think in this area there are a lot of things to do, also in the area of training and education. And the other topic is the use of AI for virtual worlds. So how to create virtual worlds very quickly, from text, for example, but also how to make them more interactive intelligence using large language model, but not only large language model, also visual models, multimodal large models, this big ChatGPT-like, but homemade in our system. Sorry. Yes, to make this virtual world not static and just computer graphics world, but very interactive and also world you can work with.
Brilliant.
Well, I'm Anne Bajar, Deputy Head of Unit in G2 in DigiConnect. It's basically the unit where we are taking care of the virtual world strategy, as you could figure out, which is basically the place where I've been working for years, trying to develop it. So we are getting there.
So without further ado, I would like to start with the first question. How do you all of you think that the activities and projects funded by Horizon Europe in the field of virtual worlds encourage research into trustworthy, human-centric solutions? Any idea about that? Everybody's looking at you, Nico, so I guess...
No, I can, yeah.
The first one in a row.
All right.
Let's start with industrial, with business view then, okay? So, okay. Look, one important thing about technologies like virtual worlds and Web4 is that commercial companies have to convince their clients first that this is useful. Mm-hmm. This is not always something research institutes, for example, look at, because they have to do research. But when we try to sell a solution, let's say to a city or to a hospital or to whoever, first, we need to create the necessary hype, let's say, and prove that this kind of technologies are useful for the business. So this kind of initiatives like the Horizon Europe or even Digital Europe help us in showcasing pilots, which I think is the most important factor when you deal with something that's very new and very unknown. Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily already have the hype to promote it, but via this kind of projects, it's, I think, the most important part is that you convince authorities or companies or especially authorities to be part of something with some part funding, let's say, and involve researchers or even hire people to start adopting things. So I think the primary thing is that adopting new things, you help companies or institutions adopt new ideas, new technologies.
From a researcher point of view, what
Yes.
would you say about that?
Yeah, no, he is fully right, of course. So, yes, from the research point of view, of course, you need the liberty to try new things. But I totally agree, at some point you need to be grounded in the application, so you have to come back to reality and find the right application. I mean, concerning this topic, I think it's a very, sometimes chicken-egg problem. So we can do something new, we don't know what it is good for, and we should find the right application. On the other side, maybe sometimes from the application point of view, they don't know what is possible. So that's a little bit the cycle we need to play. You spoke about trustworthy and human-centric. I think that's really in the DNA, I would say, from this European calls and research program. I think that's really essential at the moment because, if the world is going to be, as we saw with Web 4.0, blurring from virtual to augmented reality to real reality. So what is really computer generated? How is it computer generated? And what is, so if there is this blurring, it's very important to know, have a transparent information about how these things have been created and which information, where do they come from. So this, and on the other side, I think it's very important also, if you're in a virtual world, you will give a lot of data, or you will have a lot of sensor around you. You have maybe a hand-mounted display and some motion sensors. So it's like a smartphone, but even better with more information. So here also this question of, what's going to happen with the data? How you build that in the systems, this also ethic by design in the systems, these kind of things to make sure you have this kind of protection. I think that's essential, and it's already there, but should be implemented and enforced at least in Europe.
Lisa?
Yeah, well, basically for me it's like we're all like building the car as we're driving full speed, right? And I have that feeling for over 8 years now. So it's like when the new Horizon Europe and the EP program was introduced, I was really excited and happy to see, it's on a European level, it's there, so there is funding, so it's legitimate. It gave a real boost to the whole industry. And I also work as an expert for the European Commission, evaluating these funding proposals in specific XR calls. So it's really great to see that there is a specific outcome in this area. And so.
And maybe also from a point of view of accessibility, which you try to solve with Arrival Space, would that be something?
I mean, for us, it's I think we all here agree that we want to live in an open, diverse, inclusive, and safe virtual environments, and that interoperability is one of the most important things, and not only on a European but also on a global scale, right? So this question about interoperability, and that we all want to try to avoid a walled garden, and really create an immersive experience for everybody, and transition from world A to B to C in a safe way, let's say, that's a tricky thing. So, yeah.
Totally. And from the perspective from the Commission itself, how do you?
I don't have much to add to everything that has been said yet. Yes, we are currently funding for more roughly 150 million euros of research projects linked to extended reality. So not virtual worlds per se, but one of the very important components of it. What is interesting is that some projects are more based on basic research. Some are already more like towards, applications. I mean, I really like to believe that what also brings us to this trustworthy human-centric approach is the fact that we ask projects to be really very much grounded into real-world scenarios, so that they can really see in practice what needs to be done and not just come with ideas. Sometimes it's nice to have also crazy ideas, but we need both aspects. So I think this is really already there, and as I said before, I think everything we call for, it's always made very clear in the call text that we want things that are human-centric and that are not just developed for whatever reason. So it's part of the picture, yeah.
What do you think could be done to improve the synergies between researchers and deployers in the field of virtual worlds and Web 4.0? Are there any concrete recommendations to be put forward that you think of? Nick, DJ, sorry.
Oh, yeah. What was the question?
Well,
just give me one.
Yeah, totally. No, if you would have any concrete recommendations to put forward
Yes.
To improve the synergies between researchers and deployers.
Yes. So I can just, I think that's, can just tell how we do it.
Yeah.
I think there are two aspects. So in the project, you can, the way you organize your project is an important thing. So you can reach that over advisory board. That's techniques we have been put in place, and which is very useful. So user advisory board that makes sure, because you also look outside, you increase your network, you have some outside view on what you're doing. Because even in a project, when you have end user at the end, you really speak among yourself. So that's something which is very, that works very well. The other thing, what I notice in several projects, or when you develop something, is to try to make a shorter development cycle. Many European projects are scheduled over 3 years. Sometimes, of course, you need this time, but if you develop the technology over 3 years, of course, you can have some requirement and try to always speak with the end user and so on. But to deliver the technology very late is not a very good idea, to my point of view. So have shorter life cycle of the project, at least 2. So first prototype, then do an in-depth evaluation from all the possible aspects, then revise basically your goals is a very good, I think, also way to do. So, for example, we introduce also in my research group what we call early demonstrators. Sometimes people call it hackathon, but I don't like hackathon so much. So give a little bit time to the people, but very early show what is possible, and then show it to the end users, and that will really boost the discussion. Otherwise, it stays abstract very long. And everybody stay in his own or her bubble. Yeah. And at the end, okay, what you deliver is not what is expected. So I think that there are techniques, way to do this. Last but not least, what we also try to do is to have what we call transfer labs, is really the end user sitting with the researcher together in a room. So we establish that 2 or 3 times. You have to find the right end user ready to do this. They have to be open and want to work with us, and the other way around. But we have companies, they bring the people there in the department, they live with us, and we work with us on use cases, and we are always in contact with them. And that's also a very good way to make sure there is a good synergy, and to learn from each other. So it's things we put in place directly with companies also, yeah.
Fascinating, great. Nikos.
I also have a practical answer to that, because it's something which we do in many cases in our company. We need this fresh view of a researcher coming from an academic environment. So we often try to identify, let's say, schools or professors who are dealing with this, and we have exchange schemes by which we get researchers to help us inside the company do things. We even take a lot of interns in many cases who maybe are doing something like a diploma thesis or something like that. So just to have the interaction with the academia to give us the extra spark needed to do something in the commercial environment. And this applies a little more to the whole Web4 thing. So not so much to the virtual reality thing, but because there it's a very big field. So the virtual world's actually a subset of the Web4 thing. But there you have to research many aspects like identity, talking with sensors, like people being in the metaverse or not, social implications, things like that. So cooperation with the university is essential and in many cases very helpful.
Yeah. Just small intermezzo. We normally, I don't know if it's possible, I'm looking at the regie, if we could have the QR code of the Slido, which will allow you to ask questions. Please don't forget to also address to who you would like to ask the questions, and then at the end we will address them after the panel. So gives us a bit more interaction. So back to the panel. I don't know if you would love to add something to that, Anne.
Yes, I would like to come back to my partnership, because I do strongly believe this is the place where basically we are going to put together academics, industry, and users, and maybe also, you know, experts in different fields such as the legal aspects or the societal and ethical aspects. So that's really, for me, a place where we're going to be able to discuss together and to come with the priorities and the right ideas to make sure that even if at the end we have specific calls and specific programs targeting more specifically certain domains, it's still part of, you know, a general view and a place where we go in the same direction all together. So that's really how I see it in the next years.
Yeah. Lisa, I would like to move to a different question with you, since you have the experience judging the applications for the Commission. What should be taken into account when drafting upcoming iterations of Horizon Europe and Digital Europe to ensure coordinated action to your ID?
Well, I totally agree that I think the mixed stakeholder approach is the right one. So you get the industry, the research, policy making, but also like the public, right? Society itself. It's not only about the three of us. It's like the people get affected by extra technologies, like maybe VR, AR, MR, whatever are, like in almost like every aspect of their life. So it's important that we like consider what does it mean for our private life, for social life, for our kids, right? But also like for business. And I think it's still a lot of like awareness and education needed to like educate people on how to behave in a virtual world, what kind of data am I sharing, right? But in the end, it's about the mix, and we're all like, it's like a build, measure, learn cycle. And as a European Commission and being part of these initiatives, it's really interesting to see what's there, what's already like in production, or already solutions and products out there you can build on. And on the other hand, and these type of things more like need short-term actions, in my opinion, to move that forward, because it's a really tricky time for companies and startups in Europe right now. So we're losing IP and tech and talent because of lack of funding at this moment, because you have like the US VC scene and companies, people forced to move there to like get funding at some point. And on the other hand, there is like this broader long-term view that we really want to like make sure that we all live in a world that is like we want our kids to live in. So this short-term actions and long-term actions, and also like the support for companies, and that's what I'm seeing a lot, is that you most of the time need someone very experienced in a consortium to be able to apply or make a good application, right? So companies, SMEs, should get familiar with the options they have, like the national contact points, like the help desks. But in terms of virtual worlds, I would appreciate like strong support for companies who have a product service solution out there to get advice on legal stuff, like on policy making that is like in draft maybe right now. But yeah, to have like a person to contact to evaluate that would be.
Yeah. Of course, we already have the national contact points, so that's also something more at a local level. So you, if I read you correct, you would say to improve the national contact points, to bring them closer to the public, to the companies.
Yeah, XR is a very specific topic, right? There are not that many experts around, like really knowing XR policy, XR technology, and European policy. To have someone to approach, like as a company, would be truly helpful in order to implement these new regulations, right? So you either, as a company, have to have like a R&D department or a very good legal in-house department to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So any support that makes it easy for companies to apply these frameworks that everybody's building right now is, like, I think, quite good.
Any comments on this from the other panelists? Okay, let's move on to the next part. Given the distinct yet intertwined roles of research, deployment, and regulation, as we heard from all of you, what direction you think Europe should take to ensure the development of ethical and human-centric virtual worlds, all at the same time while encouraging and technological transfer?
Well,
yeah, please.
I think it's. Oh, sorry. I mean, like I said, it like reflects XR. It's basically touching every aspect of our lives, right? But we still have like it's software, it's hardware, it's gaming, it's education, it's training. But there should be like a common ground, that a common layer that we all agree that we need these ethical and inclusive diversity, open safety standards. Otherwise, there's a huge problem, right? And everybody who spent like a couple of hours in a virtual world knows that there is like sexual harassment, discrimination going on, that hate speech is a really important thing to think about. And I think it's even getting worse, not better, because everything what's happening in 2D right now will happen in 3D. So avatar, identity, phishing, things like that, it's not even happening now at a big scale. So yeah, we should do like our very best to work together to find a common solution on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with this part. I had some experience in the past doing policy options for the parliament. When you talk about trustworthiness, human-centric, identity protection, stuff like that, it's work for lawyers, okay? I myself am an engineer, so the only thing I can point out, or to technical people, is report as early as it gets how these technologies can be misused. So explain to lawmakers, explain to social sciences or to politicians how this technology could be misused technically, so they can then pass, let's say, the necessary decisions on how this can be ethical, protected. So one thing that Lisa pointed out is very important. I think it comes down to digital identity inside this whole thing. And I think that, okay, anonymity is the power of the internet in any case, and it always was. But by the end of the day, somehow there has to be a trade-off between controlling virtual identities as a different aspect in controlling the identity of sensors and machines and the identity of humans, where you want just to prevent that someone isn't pretending. So, but it's a very big field, and I narrow it down as an engineer that, okay, report what kind of misuse you can expect. Not only use, because when we do presentations, we all the time speak about the benefits,
Yeah.
and nobody talks about bad things that can happen with these technologies.
Well, to respond to that, I was just about to ask the question, like, for instance, regulatory sandboxes, how could these be implemented to find the right balance in that respect? Do you think that could be a solution?
Yeah, I mean, a regulatory sandbox should be something like a living lab thing, maybe per country, I don't know. Because you have to take the aspect of cultural diversity and how people react to things in mind. So maybe existing structures in each country could do regulatory sandboxes just to check what the implications are in each country, and then all together converge it on a European level to see that probably 50% is going to be the same everywhere in Europe. But you might have differences here and there, and
Of course.
I don't know, maybe digital innovation hubs are the ones who could deal with that because they have structures to do that and already combine companies and structures. I don't know, it's just an idea, but I think it should be at a national level and a common one on a European level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said before, there's not one size fits all, so there will always be differences. Thank God for that as well. So I don't know, Didier?
Yes, maybe to this sandbox, what you propose. I think that's very important to have such, let's say, instrument. I don't know what is exactly in the sandbox. I totally agree that it should be maybe per country, depending on the local laws and also cultural things. But yes, that will help a little bit to demystify a little bit what is ethics for a computer sciences researcher. When you start with ethics, you say, of course, we know we shouldn't use data and anonymize and so on, but also when you transfer a technology, to have this sandbox where you quickly can check if everything you're still in concrete framework, to support also the development, because regulation should not stop or break innovation, or should guide it. So this sandbox could be very, I don't know how they should look like, but templates, guidance, or you just describe your scenario and get an answer. It could be half automated, but kind of sanity checks that help you to continue your work without being first a little bit lost in this huge. Because sometimes when you start, it's never finishing. But I think to find a good framework is very important. That speed up a little bit this also this transfer from the legal point of view.
Totally. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Anne.
Well, I didn't have the time to go into details because I had to rush through my presentation, but we indeed have an action in the communication about regulatory sandboxes, and we will start working on this very soon with the expert group I also mentioned quickly with member states, because indeed it will be at member state level. And it will really be to play and to identify the regulatory gaps, which are indeed extremely needed and useful to identify now. But it's quite a complex thing to put in place, a regulatory sandbox. Let's put it that way. It's easier said than done, but it will come, I hope.
Definitely.
But you can actually set what Didier said before, that universities have better access to end users, so they can create user groups to test things. Companies can contact the universities, because companies cannot go directly to end users usually. So, and the sandbox could be also a help to get that regulation, because you always have to think about citizen protection when you do things like that, and data protection in general. And this is often overseen because we are already hyped about trying new things and gadgets and stuff, and you forget this part, and this comes up at a point later when the lawsuits start. All the problems arise. But I think, a regulated sandbox is a good idea, actually.
Yeah. As time is going pretty fast, we're already at our last question. I would like to ask from each of you, what do you think the European Commission should put in place in the next 5 years to ensure stronger synergies between research and markets in the field of virtual worlds. If you would have some points to suggest.
Yeah, go, Didier. No, I'm judge and party here. I have my own opinion, but I want test beds. That's where I mentioned before. I think this is missing in the list of instruments we have for the moment, and this is a needed step between what we have, which are a lot of European projects, what we might have regulatory sandboxes, but I do strongly believe we miss this part in the middle. But it's not just me deciding, so it's my wishful thinking here. You might have better ideas. Go ahead.
I mean, I agree. And testbed is something super important that we need to go quickly in prototypes. From my point of view, I would say as a researcher, so my group are PhD students. We move them to postdoc, try to bring them to the biggest conference and so on and so on. So when I see this, and also when we try to do startup, I think what is super important are the people themselves, so talented people. I mean, you had that a little bit in your presentation. And then these people come to a postdoc position, they're super well trained. Their dream is to go to Google, NVIDIA, Apple, blah. And they don't have to go to US anymore, they just go in Europe because these companies have labs in Europe and we cannot compete with them in terms of, environment. But we should compete with them. So I think, for example, there are in research this ERC program for talented people wanted to go to this. But why not doing an ERC for innovation? The same thing. What I mean with this ERCs, they are person dependent. So you're a young researcher, you want to do a career in academic, you apply for ERC, is like you win the big grant and you can develop your research idea of the last 5 years. So similar things could be innovation area. So because innovation is also supported by people, the talented people. So what the possibility today is to join a big consortium, they are in a big institution, but if it's people related, I think they can carry their own idea and also go into this kind of innovation. And innovation, the outcome could be a startup, it could be, I don't know, something like this. So similar instruments like from ERC, but for innovation, I mean, person bonded. So at ERC, you do your proposal and then you have to defend it personally and for you personally. To do that for innovation, why not? I think that could be a new instrument. Yeah. So apply could be also a team, but a person, not an institution. It can be embedded in an institution, it should be embedded in an institution, of course, but related to a person. I think that could be something totally new, different and new. I think that could be helpful for many people at this career stage also, that brings the innovations that have the knowledge.
Yeah, interesting idea. Nikos?
I think the Commission manages so far to have a good mix when they do calls and invite people and doing projects. What I would suggest, and my point of view, is to enhance a little bit what I call the interdisciplinarity, which means that open up a little bit the mixing of industries. Like we saw, for example, I was not aware of that. I saw today the digital human twin thing. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to work in the next 20 years, but I think it sounds okay. When I talk about interdisciplinarity, people are focusing on specific sectors because these are niche markets or these are big markets. So anything like virtual reality or virtual worlds starts out usually with entertainment and culture. But now we see it has a very large impact in industry. And this is one of the parts I think are going to be very big. And the other thing I'm expecting personally in the next years is the whole virtual world affecting democracy. Yeah. Meaning citizen participation and the metaverse expanding into something more like managing cities or talking to citizens and things like that. So you see there are several new things coming out of discussions that are quite interesting, and I think maybe this interdisciplinarity should be supported by the Commission in more specific calls or more fine-tuned, let's say, approaches. I don't know if it's possible, but maybe it could attract new dimensions to the whole thing.
That would be very interesting to see what comes out of that. Love the idea. Lisa?
Basically, I think it's important to keep including everybody, like this, all the stakeholders involved, like mapping the ecosystem, bring them together, provide a hub for them to collaborate and exchange throughout the whole year, right? And I totally agree. More like short-term programs, like an EC or the EU Invest approach, but focus on virtual worlds, short-term programs for people to get a little boost immediately. And on the other hand, the interdisciplinarity is super important. That's totally right, because a lot of software solutions in XR would also apply for another vertical, for another sector. So if you have a solution for a social platform, it can be adapted into education, into training, but you may not have the right partner to do that, because you need to roll out a new vertical, like the funding, the people involved. But yeah, build on existing ideas and explore and exploit more verticals.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know if you would love to add something to that.
Well, no, because I think you said most of the things I wanted to say. I think insist on the interdisciplinarity. I think that's really the next big thing if we want to make it happen. And there are we have a lot, but we are still missing certain parts of it. So, of course, at the end of the day, it's all about funding. And, we don't have all the money in the world, but we will optimize. Thank you for the ideas.
Nice. We've already come to the end of the panel, and I see there are many questions. We will try to apply to as many as possible, but we're also limited in time, or I get very bad looks from the technical department, which I would love to avoid. So I would like to start with a question for you, Lisa. If Web4 and virtual worlds is a car we are building while we are driving it, who is keeping an eye out so that we do not run over any pedestrians?
So that's a very, very good question. It really is. And I've seen a lot of things happening in virtual worlds that shouldn't happen, right? So
Totally.
it's really an important question, and I think a lot of things changed since 2020 when everybody started to produce virtual events, and now. So there's a lot more learning, understanding of how people should be treated in a virtual world. What's important when you share data, how you act or interact with another person. But for example, what we in ArrivaSpace are seeing every day, so you can go into another immersive web-based world from within ArrivaSpace. What I would wish to see is a certain certificate or information visually for the avatar to see, okay, I'm in a European-based platform right now and I'm about to enter another set of rules, right? So for me, it's if we want to avoid trouble that's really affecting people's life, we have to make these new rules visually and understandable and work on that as well. Yeah,
Like an ethical framework.
definitely is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when they did the study about the virtual worlds with the people, I mean, some people reacted saying that we need some kind of police for virtual worlds.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily agree with that, because it completely destroys let's say, the anonymity we're used to. But at some point, as I said, the whole thing about digital identity being misused is going to lead you definitely to some way in having to create an identity there. And for political reasons, yes, it should be also nice to have platforms and European identities there.
Yeah.
So I actually liked what Lisa said about having a badge saying, okay, we're a European platform.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because data is protected in the European platform. Okay, and then the other ones we're not sure.
That's true. There is a question for you, Anne. How is the EU going to approach the hardware aspects of virtual worlds? What kind of investments are going to be deployed for hardware development?
We are already deploying. So the last bunch of calls were all focusing on hardware and industrial applications because we felt like this was a place where Europe was maybe not so well positioned. Of course, it's very hard to compete with outside of Europe manufacturers, but we still have some good companies in Europe producing some headsets and so on. So that's really something we could develop further, maybe tackling some maybe more niche applications and so on. And we are currently also working together with the partnership on photonics to really design together some priorities where, you know, we could develop components benefiting from both state-of-the-art domains to really have something. So it's something we try to tackle, but of course, at the end of the day, we are competing with some big companies, as Didier said before. It's there.
Yeah, thank you. Then there's a question to the panel. Do you think Europe will ever be able to develop leading XR hardware?
Yeah, we are trying, as I just said. What do you
We have
think?
links and, for example, as a VR headset, but it's very tricky with the Apple Vision Pro.
I think it's going to be very difficult to do that. Let's be honest.
Oh, we already have
look,
two brilliant ones that I know of by heart.
Especially hardware is a tricky part because if you look at the whole virtual world thing, not only XR, okay? The question is about XR, which is specific, which means headset and stuff, okay? So that is easier to do, let's say, okay? In the rest of the Web 4, let's say, application domain, Europe actually has a good position because in sensor development and things like that, we're actually doing very well.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily competing with the Asians or the Americans. In XR hardware, we're a little bit back because this has to do with the headset more or less. But I think this is going to change a lot with AR.
Yeah.
Where it's easier to develop hardware. And I think in AR, we're going to have a change in Europe in the next years.
Yeah, and as it was said, we have very good hardware producer and developers. I mean, of course, if it's a very large consumer market, it's very difficult to compete. But you have niche and innovation, or sometimes this consumer area is preparing the market for then more industrial application. That's what we noticed several times. So in industrial application, okay, you need this functionality, but the system is closed. So that's where you have a role to play, maybe for the industry, for a particular domain. And then you find your niche, which may be really big enough to have a XR European hardware. I think that's possible, but of course, super challenging. So I mean, you cannot have XR deploy in the industry if it's not deployed at consumer markets. I think it will not work because people, have to know it, have to use it, and then they will come to the industry and I want to have that. It's what happened with the smartphone. It was sent first, and then you develop your app for your industrial application. So maybe XR is going to be similar. It will be consumer-based, but it's a fixed product, send million time. And then, it's closed, but you need a special solution for your industrial application. It should be more robust. It should be, waterproof and so on. And that's where, we will come back to hardware developers and work with them. And it's finding this niche and industrial level, I think, is a very good one.
Yeah. A final question, I'm afraid. There are so many questions. This one is to the EU, so I guess that will be you, Anne.
I am the EU, yes.
How is the EU going to deal with the telco demand for more investments in telco infrastructure to sustain virtual worlds?
Something I usually also explain when I give this famous presentation. So this is basically a hidden fifth pillar in the communication. So why isn't it really specifically in the virtual world communication? It's because there was another communication, which is basically called the telco package from February 2023, where we are investigating and making sure that Europe has the right kind of telecom infrastructure for all these new technologies coming. So it's not limited to virtual worlds. So this is basically taken care by some of my colleagues, not by us, but this is a kind of hidden fifth pillar. I mean, of course, if we don't have this infrastructure, nothing of what we are talking about will happen. And if you remember on one of the slides, I was mentioning this huge increase in the streaming of data. So we really need to, of course, tackle these issues as well. But this is bigger than for virtual worlds. It's really for the many, many technologies that
I'm gonna add a last one because you are able to respond so concise and brilliantly. What should be prioritized at European Commission level to keep XR and virtual world companies in the EU and avoid losing the best ones to USA or China?
Gosh, if I would have a solution, I would implement it immediately.
Yeah.
This is complicated. We know that. We have seen it happening already, not always the way we want it for many technologies. I think Europe has been trying to find ways to deal with that for a long time. I mean, we can only hope that this is developing more and more, and then people find the markets they need here and the fundings they need here, and they don't need to go outside of Europe or to sell their company to keep on growing. I mean, we put in place as many instruments as we can, but after that, it's yeah. I don't have a secret miracle solution to that, no.
If anybody knows the secret solution.
Yeah, please send us an email. I think I will not be the only one interested to know how to do it.
Indeed. Well, I would love to thank all of you, not only the panelists, but also the audience for the great questions. As we wrap up today's session, I think it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of the journey, that collective journey that we must undertake together. So the challenges may be quite complex, but as mentioned earlier, our strength lies in our unity. So this is also a call to action. An invitation to forge ahead collaboratively, respecting our unique diversity and leveraging it as our greatest assets. After all, unity truly makes strength, and together we will shape the future of virtual worlds and Web 4.0 together. So thank you, everybody. The next panel will come up in a few minutes. Thank you.
Right on time.